Do we need to call the meeting to order, or
Sorry.
is it just
No,
7:44?
you're right. I am somewhere else. So I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:45, and we're going to start with roll call. And Jackie, take it away.
Okay. So if you can unmute your mic now and just like make this super efficient. If everyone's unmuted, we can go through roll call pretty quickly. So Monica,
Here.
Lily,
Here.
Courtney,
Here.
Hannah,
Here.
Jenna,
Here.
Kimber, Willa,
Here.
Saphir,
Here.
Claire,
Here.
Cole,
Here.
Jordan,
Here.
Meg, Naya,
Here.
Ifani, Natalie, Renee,
Here.
Max,
Here.
Karen,
Here.
Jacob,
Here.
James,
Here.
Alex,
Here.
Justin, Izzy, Ariel,
Here.
Theo,
Here.
Pau.
Here.
Okay, sweet.
Okay. Next up, we're going to move on with the invocation. Can I have a senator at large read the invocation?
I'll do it. May we, the Student Senate, have the wisdom, patience, and guidance to be responsible representatives. May we be fair in judgments, enlightened in our discussions, and ethical in our actions.
Can I get a go Broncos?
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Hey, that's the spirit. Okay. Next up, we have the land acknowledgement. Can I have a junior senator read the land acknowledgement?
I can do it. We pause to acknowledge that Santa Clara University sits on the land of the Ohlone and Muwekma Ohlone people who trace their ancestry through the Mission Dolores, Santa Clara, and San Jose. We remember their connection to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. Let us take a moment of silence to pay respect to their elders and to all Ohlone people of the past and present.
Okay, next up, we have the approval of previous minutes. So as we read the previous minutes, if there's anything you see that would like to be changed, just please let us know.
Motion to approve the previous minutes.
Second.
Are they on the screen?
They were sent out to us as well.
Yeah, I have them. It says I'm sharing them. Let's see. Okay, now can you see them?
I'll just wait for the minutes to scroll and then I'll do it again.
Okay, that's all of them. I just did them backwards this time.
Okay, now that we've all seen the previous minutes, I would entertain a motion to vote.
Motion to vote.
Sorry, motion to approve the previous minutes.
Oh,
So
approve previous.
a motion from Hannah, second from,
Seconded.
was that James? Okay.
Yeah.
Motion from Hannah, second from James. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so the previous minutes have been approved. Now we're going to go on with the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion from Jenna,
Second.
second from Hannah. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, the agenda has been approved. So next up, we have a guest speaker. So let me make sure that she is here right now. She is. So I don't know if y'all have seen her on the Instagram stories that she's been doing for the past, I think, almost 2 years. She's also been sending lots of emails regarding COVID updates. So please give a round of applause to Dr. Catherine Saxton.
Hey everybody.
Take it away.
Thanks for having me. There are so many COVID updates that are happening all the time and so many meetings. I really just want to find out what you guys want to know. What do students, and I think maybe more importantly, ask you what students would like to see happening that isn't happening, or not happening that is happening. Sort of what can we do differently? So give you guys a second to think about questions, and I will tell you that the latest case numbers, which are, this is even before the dashboard gets updated, I just checked. There are currently 505 positive cases from the color testing, right? So that's the very slow at the minute turnaround PCR tests, although they're getting better. By the way, the reason the color tests are so slow is because that company sort of took on testing for the city of San Francisco and all of these school districts that were reopening, and they just got overwhelmed. So they're working it out and should be back to the quick turnaround times sometime next week. That's what they tell us. We'll see. In addition to those cases and sort of overlapping with those cases, we've gotten over 100 reports of positives from the rapid antigen tests that we've been trying to distribute on campus. So probably about 600 total people. But as I said, this is sort of hot off the internet press. So that might be, don't quote me on the exact numbers. The 505 is since the start of the quarter, since the start of the month. So that's all the entry testing, and then this following week.
Thank you.
What do you guys want to know? Jacob, is that a hand?
Yes, it is a hand. Couple of questions. Are the rapid antigen test result numbers included on the COVID dashboard?
They are not, because they would throw the positivity rate off, because we have no idea of knowing. You don't have to report those back to us, right? So it's a very unclear denominator. So they're not, and that is why.
Okay, and then one more question. How many rapid tests do we have? Do we have more on order? Or do we not know? Did we burn through all of them in a week?
We burned through all our first stash in a week. As you guys know, rapid tests are hard to come by. They've also, at least for the university, doubled in price since last week. Good times. This is a sort of failure of our national society. It's not just a Santa Clara problem. But I'm told that will be changing again at the national level. We're all supposed to get 8 free COVID tests a day from the government, apparently. I mean, not a day, sorry, a month. Whew, I've been away too many meetings today. So we have, I'm not sure of the exact number, something like 7,500 more rapid tests on hand. I don't know if we're going to order more or not. The hope, honestly, is to get back to using color as the main source of testing. And if they actually hold up their end of this bargain and get to 24-hour turnaround time, they're much more accurate and much better tests. So I don't think that the rapid tests will be available all quarter. Sort of philosophically, I think we should all have access to free COVID tests, free rapid tests all the time, like they do, in Europe and many other places. But that's not where we are right now. So that's what I know. We've got some more, and we're taking it sort of day by day. What else?
I have many questions, but I thought I'd start by reading the chat questions so that we don't forget
Great,
those.
thank you.
Willis asks, is that 505 from the last? Oh no, that's the full quarter. We already answered that. And then Angel wants to know if you could talk more on isolation spaces and finding alternate housing for students who need to isolate. So yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for you.
Yeah.
There are not very many isolation spaces on campus, as y'all know. They're full. They're being sort of turned over as quickly as possible. So trying to get students out of isolation and the next folks in. The housing folks are like working to their limit.
Yeah.
I know that they're not making anybody particularly happy right now, but they're trying.
Can I actually ask a more specific question, if I may?
Yes, please.
I work in residence life. I'm the assistant resident director in SWIG Residence Hall. And
awesome.
I actually am curious about, I am aware that there is people isolating in our building, and that is common, that is happening in other communal living style buildings. Is it possible for student staff members to be given a list of room numbers rather than names or anything like that of where isolation is happening? Is that something that we're working towards at all, or could be working towards, for the safety of the student staff as well as for the accountability of isolating people?
Yeah, I'm going to write that down right now.
Okay.
That's a great idea. I will take it to the folks that would decide that, because there have been some discussions around how can we best manage and support students who are having to isolate in place, and you guys always have better ideas on the ground than we do, so thank you for that.
No, and I actually have more, because we talked about it at our staff meeting this week, and I'm sorry to like take the time from other people. But I was wondering, is there any consequences from the university if people do break isolation, as we have seen like reported cases of that in our buildings? For example, we have seen residents who are like, purportedly, we technically don't know, right? But like we've heard from other people that they have COVID, and we've seen them walking down the hall to go to their friend's room. And I found that that really frustrates the student staff members who witness it, and they also don't know what to do about it. So I was wondering if you have any ideas, or whether that could also be brought to the COVID team about coming up with some sort of recourse.
I will bring it to the team, because there's only, all of the sort of COVID rule breaking consequences have been, for whatever reason, pushed to sort of the Office of Student Life, and then there's an appeals process and conduct code, and it's a long, inefficient, and for good reason, slow process, but maybe not the best fit for this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there are not currently consequences. It's also really hard to enforce, like who would do that, and how would that happen? So I think people have been reluctant to like lock people in their rooms. No. Have campus safety roaming the halls? Absolutely not. So I will bring it up. If you have ideas about what that could look like, maybe email them to me.
Oh,
or if anybody does.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then also on that kind of front, where should we be directing residents who have questions about their isolation, or if they received if they're just wanting to have questions about whether they can get out of isolation? Those people that are like, not following the rules because they either don't understand it or didn't get enough information or whatever, like where should we be directing them?
But they're in isolation, or they have tested positive?
Yeah, something like that.
In theory. So if they've tested positive and they live on campus, the people to contact, it's SCU COVID support. So it's COVID support at scu.edu. That's an email that will go to all the right people, and is the fastest way to get in touch with someone about isolation issues, including how to get out of isolation. And thanks, Abby.
Excellent. I'm just looking over my notes really quick. Oh, and then this is like more of a general question. We've noticed that a lot of residents are really reluctant to wear masks still. And part of what we feel is that it's not an even expectation across campus. For example, I see people in Benson and there's like no one telling them not to like to put on their mask, et cetera, or like campus-wide communication about like everyone should be wearing a mask basically all the time again. I was wondering, what do you think we should do about that? Like as ASG, what do we think we should do about that as peers? And then is the admin or the COVID team thinking about doing something to fix that?
Yeah, I will say that you guys are in those spaces a lot more and see that a lot more than we do. I also think that maybe it's just around me, like people put their masks on.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, yeah, everyone knows I'm going to yell at them if they're not wearing their masks, so they put it on around me, so I feel safe. But I know that other residents can't, like, don't have that authority, so I feel bad for them. You know, like,
right? But like when I walk through campus, like I think what I see may look different than what students in res halls and Benson are seeing. So again, useful information. I think that anyone should sort of feel empowered to gently and kindly remind peers to put a mask on. And especially in res halls and Benson, in those shared spaces where people are close to each other. And we can absolutely put out more sort of reminders and messaging. I don't know if you guys have stopped by the health ambassadors table outside the library lately, pick up a rapid test, get a mask. But they have been doing an excellent job of reminding folks to wear masks. Like people come up to the table and they get a little too close and they remind them to put them on, and people seem to be receptive. So, I mean, yeah. Sometimes those conversations can be tricky. I don't want to put anyone in an awkward position, but I think it is also sort of a communal responsibility to change the norms and expectations, and we can certainly work on that from our end too.
Yeah, and then my final thing is, I talked to, like, when Jeannie Rosenberger visited us, I mentioned it would be really great to have the COVID team come talk to residents, life staff, and student staff so that we know what isolation protocols are, what like we should be telling residents when they're curious about what will happen to them if they get COVID. Because a lot of us are having to make up or try to look up to the best of our ability that information, but it is difficult to tell like what like good advice is. So I think that would be really nice. Sometimes we have all staff meetings, so it is possible to meet with all of our team. So if you wanted to contact residentslife@su.edu, that would be really awesome. I don't know if that's something you would do, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Awesome, on it.
All right, that's all the questions I had. Sorry, guys.
Thank you, Allie. Okay, next up we have Renee.
Hi. Something I know a lot of people are struggling with is I know a lot of people who have symptoms and they've been exposed, they have symptoms, and they've gotten color and rapid tests, and the color tests are taking a long time, and then the rapid tests are coming back negative. So like in the period between like the negative, I mean, that happened to me this week. I've had symptoms. I've rapid tested like 3 times every other day. I keep coming back negative, but I'm still waiting on my color. Like, what should I be doing? And should I be like isolating? Should I be telling people I may have exposed? Like, I just don't really know what to do.
Yeah, it's tricky. So first of all, it's a good sign that you keep testing negative. There are also plenty of colds and other viruses around, right? So chances are you just have something else. But if you're, for folks in that sort of waiting period, I don't think anybody needs to, if you're vaccinated, especially if you're boosted, you don't need to officially quarantine or isolate. Sort of lay low, maybe wear a mask around other people, don't go to a giant party, take your mask off, that kind of thing. Sort of try to be a little extra careful, but you don't need to sort of isolate yourself in your room or anything like that. Everybody, by the way, right now, so a side note, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but UCSF does COVID tests for everybody who comes into their hospitals and they're asymptomatic, so they can sort of get a sense of surveillance testing for San Francisco. And right now it's at about every 1 in 8 people who walk into that hospital asymptomatic has COVID, test positive for COVID. So we should all assume that we're sort of being exposed all the time and sort of double down on wearing a mask and taking those extra precautions, open windows, meet outside, all of those sorts of things, because this is just everywhere right now. So if you are waiting on test results, lay low, keep low profile. You don't have to completely stay home, but everybody should assume that you're in contact with people who are potentially positive. Not to freak anybody out, not to make you all go take rapid tests all the time. Just keep your mask on when you can.
And then thank you. I just had one more question. So then, since the color tests are taking a while, I used to think it was, or I know that it's like the day after you get your positive test is when your isolation starts, or when you should. But now is like, can you start counting the day after you tested, even though that's not when you get your result? Like,
yeah, it's the day after
Okay.
you took the test.
Okay.
Regardless of when the results come in. So some people are getting them like after their isolation period is done, which is problematic. Should have been done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up we have Kyron.
I was curious how much it costs to run a COVID test, because I think you said that price doubled.
So the rapid tests, if we all buy them, you can get them like CVS or online or whatever, anywhere between $15 to like $25 for a pack of 2. The university was getting a somewhat of a discount, and then that changed. So now they're like, I don't even remember the numbers, like $10 per rapid test or something, which is up from what it was before. It depends on the company too. Like one company is $10 and the other one's like $16. So everybody's, gotta love capitalism in the middle of a pandemic. But also, side note, they're going to get more available. So if anybody or any organizations wanted to buy some rapid tests to just have on hand, feel free to spend your well-earned money that way too. Sorry, who's next?
Okay, Jenna, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Hi, I asked this question last week with Jeannie here, and I also saw that there was something about roommates and everything in the email that was sent out last week, but I feel like there still hasn't been like a clear answer about it, and I'm currently experiencing this right now where if your roommate gets COVID and they can't find isolation housing, what would be like the recommendation for me? Would it be best because my roommate actually went out and got a hotel room, like she purchased like money to buy a hotel room so that, she's keeping me safe, and that's very sweet of her, but a lot of people don't have like the financial situation to be able to do that. So what do you recommend if a roommate is COVID positive and the other person living in that room is there, and maybe they don't live close to home? What do you think that they should do?
So the best things you can do are have the person, both of you wear a mask as often as you can when you're in the same space. That's a problem when you're sleeping. And that's the hard part, right? That's a lot of hours when you're sharing air. So acknowledging that it's not a great solution, ventilation then is your best bet. So if you can open a window, that will make a difference. If you have a fan that you can point out of the window to like blow the air outside, that will also help. It costs money, but air purifiers also really do make a difference. So those sorts of things. If you can't be physically in different spaces, then wear masks and try to get airflow increased if you can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Next up, we have Lily.
This is partially a question, partially an idea, but has the university considered creating some sort of, I guess, goal or threshold to the student body to be in a like attempting to reach sort of thing. The reason I say that, I have a friend at a different university. They had a large COVID spike when they first returned in the fall. They told them that they had to half their positivity number in order for them to return to in-person classes. And for the next 2 weeks, they had half the number. So they kind of had that incentive to reach. I know I've talked to a lot of first years at least, who have been just kind of looking for that sort of goal to reach. So
yeah, it's definitely a good question. It's come up before. There are different opinions about what that threshold should be, which is part of why there hasn't been anything announced. The other logistical challenge is that because we can't force everyone to get tested, if we set a threshold of positivity, it could encourage people not to get tested, right? Then their cases wouldn't get counted towards that number. We saw some of that last year. So it's messy. We have sort of ideas, but there isn't a clear threshold that has been agreed upon. I think the keys are it needs to be decreasing. Could we just force everyone to get tested? I'd like to. We need to see it going down, right? Instead of sort of week to week, a decrease would be really nice. Let's start with that. But yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Next up, we have Jackie and then Chris.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could talk about like the new definitions of what it means to be close contact, depending on your vaccination status, and like I'm a little bit confused because like some people are triple boosted and then like maybe they're not considered a close contact, or if they have 2 vaccinations and they come in contact with someone, they are a close contact, and what that means based on like quarantine protocol following that.
Yeah. So all of this is in flux because Omicron's so different. We don't really know how much exposure you need. But essentially, there's no simple answer to this. I would consider a close contact, whether or not you are vaccinated, boosted, whatever. Unmasked contact for 15 minutes has been the standard, or masked for a much longer period of time. Like if you're living with someone who has COVID, even if you're in a mask, you're probably with them enough to be considered a close contact. The quarantine and isolation rules from the CDC sort of say if you if you're boosted, you don't need to quarantine at all, get tested, watch for symptoms. If you haven't had your booster yet, they suggest that you quarantine for 5 days. I don't know that in the sort of undergrad student population that's really necessary. So even though I think the CDC rules tend to be a little too reckless, in this case, I think they're a little too restrictive. But also, that's a good reminder, everyone get your booster. It makes a huge difference. Booster clinics on campus, January 21st.
Thank
you, Professor. Sorry, I know that's a complicated question. I was just curious.
It's a good question.
Thank you, Jackie. Now we have 2 last questions. That's Chris. Oh, Ali has her hand was down. I don't know if you want to add another one at the end, but Chris, go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 quick ones. The first one is, I know NYU was doing this, so I was just wondering if Santa Clara is doubling up on isolation. So like, let's just say Swig, for example, there's 2 beds. Are there 2 COVID positive students in the room, or is it 1 student per 1 room?
It is currently 1 student per room.
Okay. And then I guess my second question would be, I know the UC system was worried about this, delaying their return to campus. I know this is a little bit different than us. I know about half of our student populations on campus. Has the COVID task force been talking and maybe predicting a spike in cases when that other half comes back to campus, just because that other half hasn't been engaging in a student-like population? So, bringing back another half could potentially lead to another spike once they move back on the 31st.
Yeah, we've been talking about it, and it could, although I think so much of the spikes are tied to the high levels of community transmission. So depending on what we see, if sort of Omicron keeps increasing, we'll expect to see a spike. If it starts to come down, maybe we've got a little hope that it won't be so bad. But we are concerned about that. I hope that it does not happen. Honestly, who knows at this point? I sincerely hope, and if there's anything you guys can do to encourage this, if all of those people could get tested before they come back, that'd be really, really great.
I have a quick suggestion on that. Is when I was reading up and doing research on a COVID resolution, Stanford's return to campus program this quarter really interested me. And they required, when somebody was moving into their space, to take a rapid test. Do you think that could be potentially, implemented now that we do have a stock of, rapid tests available?
I was hoping we could do that when you all came back to campus. That's a good point. I will re-add that to my list of requests. Because you're right, we're in a different situation now. We have rapid tests. We could actually maybe pull that off.
Okay, I think those are all the questions. Dr. Saxton, thank you so much for your time, for coming to speak to Senate. It's very, very helpful. And yeah, I think we're having, Jacob's been working on a resolution, a COVID-related resolution, to really kind of see what the university can do to better support students who have COVID, or everyone who is getting COVID. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. So let's all give her a round of applause.
Thanks for having me. And can I just say, if you guys need anything, have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Jacob can attest to the fact that sometimes I may be a little too honest about what's going on, but I think that students deserve transparency. So I'm happy to try to help answer any questions when I can. Or just come by the health ambassadors table. I spent a lot of time over there too. I'll give you a rapid test. All right. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Saxton. Okay, now we're going to move on with the task force bylaw that we had brought up, I think, week 9 of fall quarter, right, Allie? When it was first introduced. So if you want to share your screen, and we can take a look. Allie?
Carmen, I can pull it up if you want me to real quick, the actual bylaw.
Sorry, say that again, Chris.
I can pull up the doc for the task force bylaw change if you want me to.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that'd be good.
I can fill in for Allie. I think she's having Zoom problems. I can fill in until she gets back. It helped on the task force bylaw. Is that okay, or do I need permission for that?
No, I think since you collaborate with Allie, I think it's fine.
Yeah, she's having Zoom problems.
Okay, that's totally fine.
So I guess a quick summary is that we wanted to move the task force bylaw kind of under exec and use it kind of as a tool for the president and those who are kind of in charge of ASG to have kind of a codified way of getting stuff done. So basically, the task force would be housed under exec, and then that's where all like the oversight comes from. And this was kind of just another tool on top of the ad hoc committee. I know there were some issues with it before. I'm assuming they've been edited out. But yeah, are we fielding questions right now or?
I fixed it.
Oh, nice.
As in, I had to get my phone. My computer is completely taken over by Zoom, so I really don't know what happened. I think what's happening right now for it is that you guys, so during week 9, we did the question answer period that is typical for a, a resolution for a bylaw change. And then this week, as the second week is appearing, this should be a debate for you to go into a vote. So if you could scroll down, Chris, I wrote out a couple of things that you guys mentioned. I made a couple of changes like since we last presented it, but I wrote out recommendations that I had for possible like amendments you might like to make. That way you can use the debate rules. So possible amendments would be removing the campaign. Yes, you could find, yeah, I think a link would be great if, Chris, could you put that in the chat from the document? But okay, so a couple changes that you guys suggested or I thought were worthwhile were removing the campaign goals and special from the definition of task forces, changing within 7 days wherever it appears to when the student senate next convenes, to make it more clear, as I believe Max pointed out last week or last time this was presented, and then edit the section regarding the ASG member not be official member of any task force they oversee. In the previous, like in the bylaws previous to this, that was an included factor that if the Senate chair didn't want to oversee the task force, then they could delegate that task to someone else. That is not something that we need to keep in here. If you want to make it so the vice president has to oversee all task forces, you can just get rid of that section, or you can come up with a possible edit to that line as a group. If you look under suggested motions, the main motion that whoever is going to make, they don't have to agree with this, or actually it'd be preferable that you do agree, but the main motion that you guys will be debating is that you move to adopt this bylaw into our bylaws. So that means someone that's saying yes is voting for adding it to our bylaws. Someone that says no is asking that we do not. And that is a debatable motion. So from there, it's kind of like a sandwich effect. So you can move on to any amendments, and those are also debatable. So you can debate on any of those amendments and then finish it off by a motion to previous question, which is the main motion, and vote on it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, but I think from there, Carmen's for sure in charge now. So.
Yes, thank you, Ali and Kevin. So this was introduced week 9 of the fall quarter. So senators have had time to look over this, but are there any questions that senator or comments that senators have before we move on to a vote? If you do, raise your hand in the participants chat.
To clarify, those changes have not been made. So if you pass it as is, those amendments haven't been made. So I'd highly recommend changing at least within 7 days.
Sorry, the amendments that you had, that it doesn't have to be under the Senate chair to oversee these task forces, correct?
I mean, the whole thing is an amendment. I just mean simply that the amendment to the changes, like I presented a particular set of changes at last meeting. And if people want to amend those changes, then amendment needs to be made to this particular like bylaw change.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for the clarification. If there are no further comments, then I would entertain a motion to adopt these changes. Right.
Motion to adopt these changes.
Motion from James, second from Hannah. And then Ali, do you think it'd be best to do like a roll call?
And when you say adopt these changes, Carmen, is that referring to which amendments that are listed there. Is that for removing campaign goals and special? Is that for within 7 days, or is that for removing the delegation of task force leadership?
I was gonna say remove the delegation of task force leadership, but I don't know if like, isn't it up to like senators to also decide, or is it just me that?
Yes. No, it is. I just wanted
local
before you guys vote because I didn't get it. That's all. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I assumed that it would adopt all the changes, but I don't know if there's a specific thing that I should say for that to be approved.
Yeah, no, I guess the way I wrote those possible amendments, it's not clear cut with a yes or no, particularly that last one. So I'd recommend that someone makes a suggestion for what they want to have done before you vote.
Oh, so to select from the 4.
Yeah.
If all.
Yeah. So like, are you doing all 4 of those suggestions? Are you doing only the top 2, etc.? I know that
Okay.
Max Medford had a lot of opinions about like the particular wording, and I really, really appreciated that last time. So if you want to speak on that, Max, I think that would be really helpful for everyone.
I think the changes that I'm seeing here, unless I'm wrong, Allie, are sort of what we went over last time, right? These are sort of the changes that we talked about. So I think they're fine, right? I think these are everything that I mentioned, really.
Yes. So I think in that case, then the motion should be to adopt the amendment to the proposed bylaw change by removing the campaign goals and special from the first, changing within 7 days. And then I guess my question is, do you guys want Angel to be able to ask other people to help her oversee task forces, or do you want it to all be under Angel, is the last question there, which you guys did not discuss last time.
To me, it makes sense that the vice president should be able to delegate tasks.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait, sorry, Allie, could you repeat that question? Were you asking if it's like only Angel that can do it, or like if she can ask for help? Can you just clarify that?
Yeah, so in the past bylaw, it said that it has to be, there was like contention in these comments on the side basically about like the wording. So the way it's written as of now, it says Angel as the vice president can delegate the overseeing of a task force to another member of ASG as long as they're not a member of that task force. There was questions regarding whether, like, what does overseeing mean? Why wouldn't they be allowed to be in that task force? So if those things are no longer a problem for you all, then you can do it as is. But you could also just get rid of it and then allow like more interpretation later. Which I think is ultimately my recommendation. I would say just get rid of the line that says an ASG member can be chosen to act for oversight, and just make it the vice president's responsibility. And at the end of the day, if the vice president delegates something, that's not the end of the world. No one's going to like hold them accountable for that, honestly. Does that answer your question? I think that was Willa or Lily.
Yeah, sorry, I just needed a clarification. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jacob and then Max.
What would the difference be between someone chairing the task force and overseeing it? It seems like there'd be is overseeing just like keeping them accountable?
Yeah.
Or okay.
That's my interpretation of that. And I think that was the comment on the side, was like, what does overseeing mean? Like, should we be using that language at all? To me, that means like, what do we imagine Angel will do? Is there a better word that describes that? Or, yeah, basically, yeah. I think that you hit the nail on the head right there. Thank you, Jacob.
Okay.
So
and then Max.
Yeah, so my question / comment is for the First Amendment, which is removing campaign goals and special from the definition. If possible, I would like a roll call vote on that when we vote for that. I'm requesting that because I personally do not think that should be removed. So I would like that to be voted on the full Senate if we're going to be removing that, because it seems to me like task force should be a method for the executive branch to be able to achieve goals that they are running on.
All right, so the way that that could work, Carmen, is if Max made a motion to amend the proposed bylaw change, you could make a vote right now, and I would probably just do it very informally and then make that decision like that.
Okay. So Ali, just to make sure that just so I get clarification on what we're voting on. So for the four, so the third one, you suggested to remove the possible edit. Is that what you suggested?
I suggest removing 3A. The ASG member must not be an official member of any ASG task force, basically removing that like suggestion that other people other than the vice president can oversee a task force.
Okay.
And or like that requirement that they must be not a part of the task force. In terms of what, yeah, is that your, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes more sense. And so to Max's point, what you suggested doing was doing the roll call vote for the first one, for the removing the campaign.
I would do I know it's hard on Zoom, but I wonder whether you'd be able to, like, based on Jackie's knowledge of how many people are here, whether you could have people raise their hand and just do a quick count, because that doesn't have to be as formal of a vote.
For the first
one more.
I mean, that's not regarding adopting the change to the bylaw. That's saying we have the main motion, should we adopt this bylaw? A subsidiary motion would be, like if I were Max, I would say, I propose we do not, or like not adopt amendment 1 to the change to the bylaws. And then you do like the quick vote to see what people feel, and then you just change it on the document so that they can continue on with any other subsidiary motions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because then the first one would be more informal.
And then Ali, I have a quick question real quick.
Yes.
If we remove the 3A, that ensures that, well, I'm going to use Izzy for example, because she put it in Slack. Since she's a safe walker, she can also be the head of the Safe Walk Task Force, correct? If the Senate decides to.
Yeah, so this was something that like was in the old version of this bylaw, was that like there's a difference between overseeing and chairing a task force. So like, I don't know, like it would get rid of the possibility for like, for example, like maybe like, I don't know, maybe Chris, maybe you're in charge of overseeing the task force and then there's also a chair that actually runs a task force. And you're just like there as an accountability measure. That's what the word oversee was intended to mean. And yeah, and I am noticing that there is a lot of confusion there. So maybe an amendment is to like clarify that angels, like what does angel overseeing it mean? And also another possible motion is if you guys want to postpone this to next week, I'm also more than fine with it. Just so you guys like, I don't know. I think it's kind of neat that this is an opportunity to work with the rules of debate in the standing rules. And given that we kind of ran over time, I know that can be more frustrating than helpful or fun when it gets late. So I think those are all options for you guys.
Thank you, Ali. Cole and Theo.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we've had access to this now for 2 months. If it was presented week 9 of fall quarter. So I'm just confused why everyone suddenly has questions and comments and concerns. We should have been bringing this up prior to Senate instead of wasting all of our time. I just think it's not a very good use of our time here. And I think we've talked about this several times now in Senate. And we've had this issue. So going forward, I think everyone should just kind of consider collaborating on things outside of Senate, because Senate's a time to vote.
No, it's not. There's debate. You should look at the standing rules of order. There's purpose for debate during Senate.
You just broke the.
Okay, well, you just broke the standing rules of the Senate, actually. But yeah, so with that, can we motion to postpone this until next meeting so people can think about this more, since there seem to be a lot of questions?
Motion
Second.
to postpone for poll That's a second from, who
Justin.
seconded? Justin, okay.
Justin.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed to postponing?
Aye.
Is that Max?
Yes.
You're opposed to postponing? Okay, let's do this. Let's do a hand raise vote just to make sure that, to ensure that everyone's vote is being taken into account. All opposed to postponing, please raise your hand in the participants chat. Okay. That is 2. Okay, the ayes have it. So we are going to postpone this to next week. I do think, kind of to Max and Cole's point, I do think that debate is necessary and healthy, but at the same time, it's good to look over when documents have been sent for a while. But yeah, but make sure, since there was a lot of confusion, that we do revise this document before we come to sign it tomorrow.
I'm going
next week.
Yeah, I'll send out this information along with the standing rules and rules of debate, because I personally am going to refuse to edit these outside of Senate, because it's up to you guys how this turns out. It's not up to whoever writes it. So yeah, so that's that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Allie. Next up, we're going to move on with, I think, announcements, right, Chris?
Okay, guys. I need everyone to scan this QR code. This is for the Senate exec, so that's Carmen, Jackie, and I. This is a quick survey. I need all senators to have this filled out before you leave, but preferably, if not by the end of the week. We're just doing this to sort of see how we can fix Senate this quarter and make it run more smoothly for you guys. So that's that announcement. Also, I'm going to stop sharing. Other announcements that we have talked about in Senate exec is keeping in contact. So we understand the Slack is hard to use, but just reiterating once more, try to check the Slack, once a day, if not more. Check your iMessages. Also, just because when we are texting you, we're texting you for important things. A lot of these things are time sensitive. Just like you guys don't like to waste time in Senate, we also don't like to waste our free time. Yes, Willa, I can post the link in here. And then also just Senate. And then one thing is Senate is more relaxed on Zoom. We understand that, but we do ask that you try to have your cameras on, because if this was a normal Senate meeting, you could not show your face. So just giving sort of courtesy to both guest speakers when they're here, but also courtesy to your fellow senators. With that, I will turn the floor back to Carmen.
Thank you for the announcements, Chris. One last thing that I wanted to say is, as Dr. Saxton said, there are over 500 positive cases on campus, and those are ones that have been reported. With that said, I can't say this enough. Please do not go to large gatherings. I know we all want to see each other. I know we all want to have fun, but the rest of the seniors and I want to graduate. We want to walk across the stage. I want to get back into person class as much as we all do, but remember that as representatives of ASG, people do look up to you as student leaders, and so y'all need to start with setting the example. So I know there's a lot of activities going on. I know you know what's right and what's wrong, but please stop the spread. And as ASG leaders, that is something that we expect you to do. Thank you. Allie, go ahead.
Yeah, going off of that, I want to point out that there is precedent for us putting, for judicial putting ASG members on probation if they're found to be at large unmasked gatherings. So if that turns out to be the case, we may revisit that with you in particular. So just wanting to continue to remain professional when things are tough. I know that's difficult, but people look up to you, so you need to recognize that.
Thank you, Allie. I think Theo, did you have your hand up?
Is this like, are we like in roundtable remarks? Or is this just general? Like
It's announcements, roundtable remarks. They're kind of, I'm honestly treating them as the same thing, but yeah, you can go ahead if you want to share something.
okay. I just wanted to share with everyone in like, you know, like I think like media likes to make things a lot more stressful than they actually are. And I really just want everybody to make sure they're like, you know, not being too consumed by all the fear mongering of like the virus, just because like things have gotten skewed and the media likes to skew things to make things seem a lot scarier than they actually are. And so I just don't want anybody to like, you know, really upend their whole lives and really like go through a downward spiral with their like mental health. But yeah.
Thanks, Theo. I have Kyra and then I have Abby.
I'd just like to say that COVID is a very serious issue and hundreds of thousands of people have died. I think it actually does make sense to upend your life because so many people have died. I know people who have died. I have relatives who have died from COVID. It is not a lighthearted number. It is a serious issue and we should take action.
Thank you for sharing, Karen. Next up, I think, Abby, I don't know if you had your hand up.
I was just going to echo Kyron's sentiment. If people are looking for kind of a non-biased thing, I know Theo mentioned a concern about media being biased. If you want to just look at something objective, look at hospital rates, and if there are beds for people in crisis and emergency, and there are not. So there is a very objective thing for you to look at.
Okay, and then thank you, Abby, and then Theo.
Yeah, no, I was just saying because like, you know, we're student government for like college students. And like also like a big thing that you can do is like kind of like get in your own like kind of social bubble of people and not like, I don't know, like travel out of state or like do other types of things that are like high risk activities. And just, you know, like there's ways you can go about this without like, you know, like taking a toll on your own mental health, because I know everybody's already feeling like a little isolated, anxious, and depressed with this whole online format. But yeah, and so that's just what I was going with, like take care of yourself and making sure that you're doing well.
Thank you, Theo. Another thing that we can do is what Angel said is that, you know, ASG office hours are a thing. We have the privilege that we have access to the ASG office, so we can have like a, you know, safe social distance gathering there. I personally haven't been there too much because Locatelli is a little out of the way, but I'm going to try to make an effort to really spend my time in Locatelli and, you know, do homework, ASG related activities, and really spend time with ASG members. So that's also a way that we can mingle in person safely. Okay. If I have no other comments or remarks, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh my God. Who's that motion from?
That was from me, Claire.
Motion from Claire, second from Justin. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll stay here for a bit if anyone wants to chat.